we may be talking about the most important subject that we ever have on this show.
Totally agree.
At least I think so. At least I think so.
Well, it's about salvation. It's about eternity. So that's pretty important.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't get any more important than that. And we've got a resource. And not only do we have a resource for everyone, it's free. So
Like
I can't
the price.
wait. It can't beat the price. So I can't wait to talk about that on today's episode. But before we do, I want to talk about our sponsor, Tyndale, who we love very much and who does really an incredible job resourcing the church. Obviously, you can go to their website, Tyndale.com, and just see all that they offer. But we want to bring up something very specific, and it's the Access Parent Guide. So I hear this all the time as a pastor. I need resources to help my teenager or preteen get through life. And the Access Parent Guides do that. They know what's influencing teens today. They can help with all sorts of identity issues. That seems to be a major problem among young people, is understanding identity. And these resources equip the parents of teens in your ministry with all sorts of tips to tackle timely topics such as body positivity, sexuality, eating disorders, fear and worry. Anxiety is a real problem among the youngest generation. So check out these updated parent guides. They're available just about anywhere you buy books, Christian books. But we've provided a link in the show notes as well to take you right to it. So go check out the Access Parent Guides, particularly the one to Finding True Identity. That one's really good. So love to promote the products of Tyndale. This is very important. Obviously, it ties into what we're talking about today because we're talking about the salvation of children and what do you do? So great segue into today's topic.
And Sam, you know how long we take to prepare to coordinate with each other, who's going to say what, and how we probably spend 3 or 4 hours on every podcast before the podcast, laying out all the script and all that. Not really. So
It's quite a pre-production process. Yes.
Yes. Not really.
All of 30 seconds.
We do take time to prepare the content, but as far as what Sam and I are going to say, we just whatever happens, it happens during this podcast. So here, I'm about to make a pivot. Sam created the resource upon which this entire podcast is based. And so I am going to be the interviewer. Sam is going to be the interviewee. And that'll make it a lot more natural since you created the resource, even though the points are well taken with or without a resource. So we're talking about when your child becomes a follower of Christ, when your child accepts Christ. No bigger decision, no greater decision. Absolutely. But many times we say, oh, okay, now what? Now what? Well, we're going to have 7 steps of now what? And Sam, the first one is right where you said it's most important. It's the most important. You celebrate, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I get this a lot. We have 35% of our church at West Bradenton is 18 and under.
That's young. That's a lot younger than when I first got there.
Yes, we have. The average age has decreased quite a bit with our congregation. We're reaching a lot of young families. These families they have gospel-centered homes and they share the gospel with their children. Obviously, I believe evangelism starts in the home. You should be sharing your faith with your children. Now, obviously, it needs to be their own decision. They need to come to Christ on their own, but you must be a faithful witness in your home. So we expect the children of our church to come to Christ. At what age? Well, there's a big debate about that, right? What's the age of accountability? When can a child understand? That's not the purpose or the scope of this show. But I believe that there should be plenty of children in the church accepting Christ. 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years old, teenagers. What do you do? And I got that question so many times throughout my ministry. I've pastored a few churches, and it's one of the most common questions I get from parents. Hey, my child is about ready to accept Christ or has accepted Christ. What do I do next? And we created this resource just for that. So you can go to salvation.churchanswers.com. I'm just going to promo our own resource if that's all right.
Well, it's a free
Salvation.
resource.
It's
There's no
free.
problem. Yeah. And it's a
Yeah, it
great
was one of
resource.
those it was one of those resources where 95% of the content that we produce is free. We only sell about 5%. And it was one of these decisions that we made as a team. Like, I don't know. I just felt wrong kind of selling a salvation resource. Like just didn't pass the smell test for me. Like, hey, let's go. I absolutely love this thing. It's a video and a free ebook. So you can go to salvation.churchanswers.com to get it. But we just didn't feel like we needed to sell it. And I just, Dad, you taught me this. Sometimes when you put a price tag of 0 on something, it's a perceived value sort of thing, but I still just didn't feel right selling this one.
I think you made the right decision on this, and this is an incredibly valuable resource. And offering it free does not in any way imply, from our perspective, that it's a lower value. In fact, it's one of our higher value resources. But you did the right thing by making it free. You celebrate, and then you get a Bible in the hands of your child. Talk to us about that, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, after you celebrate with your child and whatever that is, favorite restaurant or something to mark the occasion, maybe as part of the celebration, you go to a bookstore and a Christian bookstore, and you pick up a Bible. There's lots of age appropriate Bibles that are out there. We've got some at our bookstore. So link provided in the show notes for that. If you're like, hey, do you have curated content to where I can find a children's Bible that's appropriate? Yes, we do. So put a link in the show notes for you to go check that out. I recommend the New Living Translation. The reason I like the New Living Translation is because children can read it with adults. It's accurate and readable, and it's one of these translations that's just got a great balance to it for all ages. Probably the most readable translation that's out there that doesn't sacrifice accuracy.
Yes.
And absolutely love it for that reason. So highly recommend the New Living Translation. Obviously, there's others. But I would say if your child is of reading age, get a full Bible. Tyndale's got some good New Living Translation versions of that. In fact, one of the things I did, got a neighbor, and she has a child of age, and been trying to get them to come to church, but she's spiritually receptive, and asked me as a pastor to buy her son a Bible or pick one out. So of course I went to our bookstore and checked out some of the content that's there and found one that I thought was appropriate for him, and gave it as a gift. So I think this is an important marker. Yes, celebrate with gusto. Have a big celebration when your child accepts Christ. This is the most amazing decision ever. In fact, the resource is called The Greatest Decision. And what do you do after your child accepts Christ? So celebrate, and then I'd say next step is to purchase a Bible. And if possible, purchase a full Bible, one that's got every book of the Bible, all the verses. I think that's a good way to go.
When we get to Numbers 3, 4, and 5, Sam, these are 3 things I did not do with you and your brothers. And you have mentioned, Dad, I wish you had done some of these things. I wish even we could have gotten one of those humongous camcorders back in those days and recorded it. But at the very least, we could have done audio. We could have written some things down. I'm not going to go back and have guilt trips, but I do regret that we did not do 3, 4, and 5. Just to market in different ways. And we're going to look at each of these individually, but you're marking it with a date, you're doing a video, and you're doing a handwritten letter. I wish I had done those, but parents can do this now. So let's look at number 3. Mark the date. You don't even remember the date, do you?
I remember the day. I have a very distinct memory in my brain. It was at Hopewell Baptist Church,
Jeffersontown, Kentucky.
Jeffersontown, Kentucky. I remember walking the aisle. I remember thinking, I know that that's my dad up front, but I'm really walking to my Heavenly Father. I remember that in my brain. And I remember a lot of the details of that day. I remember the windows in the church for some reason. Like there's just certain things that stick out. I remember you crying and me basically thinking, well, you shouldn't be crying about this. But
I,
obviously tears of joy.
I'm an emotional
Uh,
guy.
yeah. So I do have very distinct memories of the day. I know that I'm saved. I have no doubts about my salvation because of that. I knew I was making my own decision. So all of the things that you would hope would be there were there for me. But yeah, I don't know the exact date because you didn't think to write it down.
I sure didn't. I didn't do any of these three recommendations that I think are really, really important. So, this date, this date is as important, if not more important, than your birthday because it's your new birthday.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't have a new birthday without a birthday, but boy, they are important and they should be celebrated on an ongoing basis. I know families that celebrate the new birth of their child every year, even when they're adult children. And that is just so cool. It's something I did not do. I wish I had done that, but I love it. And then these days, recording a video of the child's testimony is easy for anyone. It would have been a little more challenging for us, but we could have done it. But anybody can do
Yeah,
it
this
now.
this is something that technology has enabled. Everyone has a smartphone. So I think this is important. By the way, when you buy the Bible, just write the date in the Bible in that presentation section. So, and if you don't know the exact date, put the month and the year, right? And then record your child's testimony. There's several reasons why this is important. Let's say you have a 10-year-old or an 11-year-old, and you ask them about their decision. And I think it's just good to have record of that one. But secondly, a lot of people will struggle when they get to teenage years, early 20s, and just wonder, like, was my decision real? I accepted Christ when I was 10. Was that my decision? And those are good questions. And I think that as somebody becomes of age and as somebody becomes an adult, you're naturally going to ask those questions of your faith. So the questions are good, actually. They're healthy. But if somebody's struggling with, was that a real decision? I mean, having that record, that video, to remind your child that they accepted Christ and here's what they said at the time, I think is very important. And it may help somebody who's 10 years removed from that. Let's say they accepted Christ at 10, now they're 20, they've got questions. They are now able to go back and watch that and go, okay,
Mm.
yeah, I do remember. I have vivid memories now of this. And it may help with assuring somebody of their salvation. Now, clearly, there's going to be cases where people still doubt and all of that. But this is one way to not only have a memento, but have a discipleship tool available for your child as they enter into adult years.
So let's go back. Your dad was pastor of four churches. You accepted Christ while I was pastoring the second church. Your middle younger brother accepted Christ while I was pastoring the second church. Your youngest brother accepted Christ when I was pastoring the third church. Guess which one got a letter? Jess. I started writing letters to all of the kids who had been born into the church and anticipating their new birth. That wrote them the letter at their first birth. And when they became a Christian, I wanted them to open that letter. Well, I said, you know what? I can write a letter to my own son when he becomes a follower of Christ. But I didn't start doing it till the third son. So you are
Yeah, I
left.
missed out.
You and Art are left out. The youngest kid always gets all of the benefits. And you're saying write a handwritten letter to your child. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, so I think that there's several letters that need to go to children that grow up in a church. One, I write a letter to every child on the day of their dedication. So we have a lot of families that dedicate kids, infants, 1, 2, 3-year-olds, And I write a letter to that child to be opened on the day that they accept Christ.
Which
As
is
a reminder,
what I was doing as well.
yeah, as a reminder of the dedication and the purpose of the dedication, which is that these children would grow up in gospel-centered homes, that they would hear the gospel, that they would come to faith, and then be discipled in the church. So I'm just now in my ministry. I've done some dedications, child dedications, 10 years ago or what have you, and now I'm getting people contacting me, say, "Hey, we opened the letter today," which is really, really neat as a pastor. I think another letter that needs to be written is what we recommend in this resource. And again, this resource is for parents. So if you are a pastor listening to this and you need a tool to give to your parents, this is a great tool. So I think
Absolutely.
the parent also needs to write a letter to the child when the child accepts Christ. And then what you can consider doing is, so you get a letter from your pastor the day you accept Christ, that was written on the day of the dedication. And then you get a letter from and then maybe on your 18th birthday, you get this letter that was written from your parents on the day that you accepted Christ. So, it's this kind of letter that you give later that looks back on the event. I actually write a letter twice a year to my kids. I'm going to give it to them on their 18th birthday. So sometime in the summer, I'll write letters, and then right around Christmas, I'll write letters to all my children. And I'm going to put them in a little book with some pictures of, that era.
That's so good. I love it.
And that will be my high school graduation gift to
Oh,
them when they turn 18, is all these letters that I wrote throughout their childhood with some pictures interspersed. But I think at bare minimum, please write a letter to your child when your child accepts Christ. And then maybe you withhold that letter, giving them that letter until they turn 18, or when you think that they're more of an adult, and it's just a look back on, hey, you accepted Christ when you're 10, now you're 18. Here's a letter I wrote when you were 10. I just think it's a neat little memento and a neat thing to do. And I'm a big fan of handwriting letters. Actually, I type these letters now, but you could handwrite as well. It doesn't matter, because when I put them in the book, I'm going to make a book out of it. So I've actually typed up these letters. But
that's so
a
cool.
handwritten letter to your child is also a neat thing. And when they get into adulthood, giving it to them. So that's another thing that we recommend. All right. So my child has accepted Christ. What do I do? Hey, write a letter and consider giving it to them when they enter into adulthood.
Number 6 is obvious. Commit to a church.
No, it's not.
Well,
It's no.
let me finish. Let me finish. I was only at the comma. I was not at the period. Number 6 is obvious to us that committing to a church is important. And I'm talking about you and me, but many parents are seeing church as yet another activity. If we're going to do Sunday sports, we won't go to church. If we're going to sleep in, we're not going to go to church. And all the issues that are there. What I wish I had brought to this podcast, and I didn't, that's okay. I wish I had brought all the statistics that indicate what happens if you as a parent take your child to church on a regular, and that would be, from my perspective, every week, unless providentially hindered, on a regular basis. All the correlation, and you and I know that correlation does not prove causation. That's a statistical reality. But the chances of that child becoming addicted to drugs are less when they go to church. The chance of that child getting into some type of aberrant behavior beyond that are less when they go to church. All of the bad things are become less as a reality, and all of the good things become more of reality. But the main reason you want them to go to church is because they are discipled in the local church. That is outside of the home. That is the most important place for discipleship to take place, Sam.
Yeah, I would make an argument that discipleship cannot take place outside of the local church. I might be showing some theological cards there, but you may learn some things, but you're not being discipled unless it's within the context of the local church, whatever your church may be. So committing to a church is important. If you find faith important enough to you to mark the date and buy a Bible, then you should also commit to a local body. Everyone needs a church. Every child needs a church. So find one that's good for you and your family, and commit there and be there faithfully and be there regularly. And then this last step, again, obvious to us, but maybe not so obvious to parents. And this is why we've created this resource for parents. So again, those of you who are church leaders, obviously, if you're a parent, go get it. Salvation.churchanswers.com. Again, it's free. It's free. Just go get it. Um, but we've given these to pastors to give to their parents as well, because what may seem obvious to you may not be so obvious to the parents. The last thing is just seek pastoral guidance. I mean, in our tribe, we baptize, right? So, if you've accepted Christ in our tribe, the next big step is, all right, you need believers' baptism. I know that's not the case of everyone who's listening to this, and there's different views of baptism. We certainly want to respect those of you who are wrong about your particular view of baptism. I'm joking.
Oh,
I'm joking.
there.
I know. Fighting words. I love you. I love you. But yeah, if you've committed to a church, then you need to go to the leadership of that church, the elders, the pastors, whoever's there, children's minister, and seek out guidance from them. And just say, okay, we found a place, we found a body, we found a local congregation that's really good for us and our family. What do you recommend? My child has just accepted Christ. Please tell us next steps. And obviously, at my church, it would be, hey, let's start talking about baptism. Let's start talking about Wednesday night programming, where we do a lot for kids. Sunday morning programming, where we do a lot for kids. There's a rhythm there. It's important for you to be in that rhythm. These are things that we've talked about on previous episodes that are important to my church. Every church is going to have its different priorities, of course, and different ways of doing things. But you need to find that church that's good for you, and then you need to follow the guidance of your pastor or church leader who's in charge of making sure that children are discipled, and seek what they have to say. So I think that's an obvious next step, but a lot of people don't take it. So that's why this resource is important, is it can walk parents through these important steps that we think are critical, immediately following a child coming to Christ. So again, salvation.churchanswers.com.
Get that free resource. It is so good. It is so good. Please get that. And I realized what I was doing during this entire podcast, Sam, that is a miss. We're talking about children accepting Christ, and I have photos of all of my grandchildren and their parents. That would be you. But the only one that is showing in the screen is Jess and his family. So I've got to move the screen a little bit. There is Sam and his family, and now there is Jess and his family. So
that's for our YouTube audience, which is growing, by the way. Hey, if you're viewing this on YouTube, we're glad you're with us.
So I started with the youngest, then the middle, and no, that's the youngest and the oldest in the middle. There is no order there. I just keep the photos up there. I know that everybody really wants to see my family photos, so I'll be quiet. Before we close out, let me tell you something that really just resonated with so many of you. A donor gave us 5 scholarships to Church Answers University, 50% scholarships worth $748. And we gave them away on a first come, first serve basis. The first 5 went pretty quickly. Someone came back and said, please, and gave us the reason for their not getting to the podcast in a timely way. And so the donor said, okay, I'll give one more. So 6. Now the donor's coming back and saying, this did so well, and there's such an interest in Church Answers University.
And they went quickly.
They did.
These went very quickly last time.
Yeah, Matt was emailing us and said, gone. So we're offering 5 more at $748, half of the cost of tuition. Understand, Church Answers University is a fast-growing school that offers ministry training and education at a fraction of the cost of a typical degree-granting program. And it's a certification. It can be used if you're raising up staff within the church, if you're BIVO and you've had no opportunity to go to seminary or college to get ministry degrees. There are just so many reasons why people are doing this. We have a lot of overseas people. Right now, 50 students in Uganda are going through Church Answers University. If you want to get these, it's 10 courses, all the textbooks provided by Tyndale.
Books included. Books included.
Yes. Be mailed to you immediately upon jumping in this. Right now, we have 2 certifications. One is in Christian ministry. That's a general certification. Then we have one in women's discipleship, a very popular one as well. We'll soon have one in worship leadership as well. So if you want one of these 5 scholarships, first come, first serve, write Matt, M-A-T-T, at churchanswers.com. And just talk to him about it through your email. He'll give you all the details and allow you to do so. Always, thank you for being a part of Rainer on Leadership, now one of the top 2% podcasts globally, everywhere. We're just really excited that we are reaching so many people. Thank you for being those people, both on YouTube and on wherever you're listening to this on your favorite app. If you're not watching on YouTube, give us a rating, review, subscribe to us on YouTube. Get the word out. It's free. It's a ministry. Thank you for being a part of it, and we'll see you in the next episode. Hey, folks, this is a PS to our podcast. We got some exciting stuff that we want to offer you absolutely for free. Sam, when you think about predictive factors in a church's growth, if you take out demographics, what are some things that come to mind? Just two. I mean, don't give me a list of 10. Just 2 or 3 things that come to mind on predictive growth of a church.
Well, evangelism and whether the church is doing it or not.
Bingo.
And then I will add, is it an ongoing evangelism emphasis?
Double bingo. Well? Maybe something about leadership and their commitment to that. So all of the above.
Evangelistic churches have evangelistic pastors. Is the staff, is the lead pastor doing the work themselves?
We have a free download for you, and it's actually a sheet that you can self-score. You answer 20 questions, anywhere from strongly disagree to strongly agree, and we come back and we predict what your growth rate is going to be for the next year in worship attendance. It's not a perfect tool, but it's a good tool. There's a link to that for the attendance predictor. Look in the show notes. You'll absolutely love it. That's cool. We'll see you soon.